Your mother collapsed. I need money right now. The call from my husband came a week later. I smiled and asked back, why don't you ask your new wife? Life is a continuous heartbreaking drama, and true character is revealed in crisis. In the daily rhythm of meetings and partings, a person's true self is laid bare. Welcome to a story of love and betrayal that will move your heart. The 3 p.m. sunlight slanted through the plate glass window of the Birchwood Cafe in Williamsburg, casting dappled patterns of light on the rustic wooden table. I swiped a finger across the Canadian permanent residency application on my iPad. The air was filled with the low hum of the espresso machine and the murmur of conversations from the next table. This was the cafe where Michael and I had come at least twice a week during our 3 years of marriage. He always said the vanilla bean latte here was the best he'd ever had, perfectly suited to my taste. Michael sat across from me, his brows slightly furrowed as he tapped away at his laptop, feigning a busy workday. Something urgent came up at the office. You take your time. I'm just going to take this call outside. He stood up, and as he did, he casually placed his iPhone on the table next to me, screen still lit. The last thing on the screen was a group chat from his company still open. Without much thought, I lowered my head and continued reviewing the information on my immigration forms. In just 1 month, we were scheduled to immigrate to Canada, just as we'd planned. It was a process we'd been preparing for over 6 months. My best friend Jessica Miller had even gone above and beyond, helping us find an apartment in Vancouver and reviewing all the paperwork as if it were her own. Just then, the phone screen flickered off, and then lit up again with a new iMessage preview. The sender was Jessica. A small thumbnail photo appeared alongside a single line of text. The church ceremony went great. The photos turned out amazing, right? Once she signs the waiver for the immigration application, my fingers froze in midair. My heart felt as if it had been seized by an icy grip. Jessica was my closest friend, the one I had grown up with, the one I could tell anything. She had been more dedicated to my immigration preparations than I had been. Why would she send a message like that to Michael? I instinctively glanced toward the front of the cafe. Michael stood in the hallway near the entrance, his back to me, gesticulating as he spoke on the phone, seemingly in a serious conversation. Driven by a morbid curiosity that overrode my better judgment, my finger lightly touched the screen of his phone. The fingerprint lock disarmed without a sound. Our passcodes were each other's birthdays, a symbol of the trust we promised when we married. The chat with Jessica was pinned to the top. The most recent message was now visible in its entirety, along with the photo. The church ceremony went great. The photos turned out amazing, right? Once she signs the waiver for the immigration application, the house in Brooklyn and her savings are all ours. The Canadian account is already set up so we can transfer the money straight there. And the photo. In it, Michael and Jessica stood on the red carpet of a beautiful church in Vancouver. They were dressed in formal wedding attire, holding a marriage certificate, and smiling radiantly. A minister and 2 witnesses were visible in the background. The date stamp was from last week, the exact time Michael had claimed he was on a business trip to Europe for his company. And Jessica had told me she was visiting her family back home during that same period. I felt the blood rush to my head, my fingertips turning cold. Michael's supposed business trip to Europe and Jessica's family visit were both lies. They had gone to Canada together and secretly gotten married. I scrolled up through their chat history. A message from 6 months ago jumped out at me. She's so easy to fool. She really thinks we're all moving together. Once we get her to sign the asset waiver, we can cut her loose completely. Michael, we can't let her find out. The prenuptial assets she brought into the marriage are substantial. They'll all be ours. Don't worry, Jess. The way I treat her, she'd never suspect a thing. Once this is done, I'll finally be able to marry you properly. Each message was a sharp blade stabbing into my heart. Every moment from the past 6 months flashed before my eyes. Michael constantly coming home late under the excuse of working overtime. Jessica frequently visiting our apartment to check on the immigration progress casually, suggesting that it would be easier to buy a house in Canada if I consolidated my prenuptial assets with Michael's. At the time, I just thought my friend was being thoughtful, and my husband was being diligent. Looking back now, it was all part of their meticulously planned scam. The phone screen was still bright. I quickly screenshotted the entire conversation and the wedding photo, emailed them to my mother's private email address, and backed up the originals to my iCloud. After I was done, I placed the phone back where it had been as if nothing had happened. My coffee had gone cold. I lifted the cup and took a sip. The bitter taste spread from my tongue down my throat, but it was nothing compared to the bitterness in my heart. Michael returned from his call, that same gentle smile plastered on his face. "Hey, hun, did you finish reviewing the documents? Need any help?" He reached out to stroke my hair, but I instinctively leaned away, pretending to organize the papers. "Almost done. There were a few clauses that were a bit confusing. I was just about to ask you." He didn't seem to notice my strange behavior. He sat down and began to explain things patiently. The deep affection in his eyes now looked like nothing more than disgusting hypocrisy. Another iMessage from Jessica came through. "She doesn't suspect anything, right? I've got the waiver ready. I'll come over to your place tomorrow, pretend to help with the paperwork and get her to sign it." Michael glanced at the message and quickly typed a reply. "Don't worry. She's too naive to ever suspect a thing. Come tomorrow. We'll get this over with quickly." After sending the reply, he pocketed his phone and smiled at me. "What's wrong? You look pale. Just tired." "I guess I've been stressed with all the immigration prep." I deliberately brought up Jessica's name to gauge his reaction. "But I feel so much better, knowing you and Jessica are helping me out." His eyes flickered for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. "Of course. Jessica's your best friend. It's only natural she'd help. We should have her visit us as soon as we're settled in Canada." I just nodded and said no more. I pretended to look at the documents, but a violent storm was raging inside me. They wanted me to sign an asset waiver. They planned to take everything, the inheritance I brought into the marriage and the joint assets we had built together, and leave me with nothing. It was a perfect plan, but for all their careful calculations, they never imagined they'd make a mistake like this in this cafe. They never imagined I would witness the filthy details of their scheme. As the sun began to set, the cafe filled with evening customers. I closed my iPad and said to Michael, "I think I've gone through most of it. Let's head home. I'm a little tired." "Okay, I'll take you home. I'll make that spaghetti bolognese you love for dinner." Michael stood up, picked up my bag, and even thoughtfully pulled out my chair. As we left the cafe, a cool evening breeze blew against my skin. I looked at the man beside me, the man I had loved for 3 years. Seeing the false tenderness on his face, my heart felt no sadness, only a cold, steely resolve. When we got home, the motion sensor light in the hallway flickered on, casting a warm yellow glow on our wedding portrait hanging on the living room wall. In the photo, Michael and I were smiling, looking like the happiest couple in the world. Now, it just made me want to laugh. Michael changed his shoes and headed straight for the kitchen. "You go rest. I'll whip up that bolognese in no time." His back disappeared behind the kitchen door, and I could hear the sound of water running as he washed vegetables. I stood there looking around the home we had shared for 3 years. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, held my hopes for our future. But now, it was just a stage for their elaborate fraud. Instead of going to the bedroom, I went into the home office and turned on the computer. The immigration document was still open to the page I had been reviewing earlier. I hit save, then logged into my personal bank accounts. Before my marriage, I had 2 apartments in my name purchased outright with cash, and a substantial amount of savings left to me by my parents. These were all my prenuptial assets. After we married, we ran a small design firm together and had a good amount of liquid capital in our business account. This was what Michael and Jessica were after. First, I went to a property management website and filed a request to change the ownership information for my 2 apartments. 6 months ago, my mother had gifted me one of her apartments for health reasons. Now, I was using the legal premise of returning a gift to transfer my 2 prenuptial apartments back into her name. The process was legal and discreet enough not to arouse Michael's suspicion. Next, I opened our company's financial accounts and transferred the majority of our liquid assets to my mother's overseas trust account. I left just enough for daily operational expenses, so on the surface, the company would appear to be running normally. After all this was done, I contacted Catherine Davis, a divorce attorney I had consulted with once before. Miss Davis was a renowned family law specialist, known for her meticulous and professional work. I sent her an encrypted message briefly explaining the situation and asking her to prepare for a special divorce case focusing on Michael's marital misconduct, malicious concealment of assets, and his fraudulent marriage to Jessica. Miss Davis replied promptly, asking to meet with the evidence and advising me to gather as much tangible proof as possible, especially a complete chain of evidence regarding their overseas marriage registration. Just then, Michael walked into the office with a plate of sliced fruit. "Hey, the bolognese is going to take a little while. Have some of this first." He placed the plate within my reach and glanced at my computer screen. "Still looking at the immigration papers, don't overdo it. If there's anything you don't understand, just ask me. No, just double-checking my personal information. Don't want any mistakes. I turned my body to block the screen and handed him a slice of apple. By the way, how's the apartment in Canada that you and Jessica were looking into? It's pretty much settled, Michael said, casually taking the apple. Jessica asked a friend of hers in Canada to pick out a few places in a good neighborhood with convenient transportation. You can check it out yourself when we get there, and if you don't like it, we can always find another one. He was completely oblivious to my deliberate probing about Jessica. Okay. You two have worked so hard. Once we immigrate, I'll have to treat you both to a huge dinner. After 9 p.m., Michael went into the bathroom to shower. His phone was on the nightstand next to the bed. I seized the opportunity, picked it up, and unlocked it again. In addition to the iMessage history, his photo gallery was filled with pictures he had taken with Jessica in Canada. Pictures in front of the church on the beach and even an intimate photo of the two of them in a hotel suite holding up their marriage certificate. I backed up all these photos onto a USB drive and opened his banking app, taking screenshots of several joint account details he shared with Jessica. These were all accounts I had never known about, clearly created to siphon off our assets. When Michael came out of the shower, he saw me sitting on the bed and asked casually, "Why are you still up?" "Just thinking about the move." "A little nervous about living in a new country," I said, nonchalantly placing his phone back on the nightstand. Michael sat down next to me and wrapped an arm around my shoulder. "Don't worry. You have me. As soon as I wrap things up in New York, I'll fly right over. We'll live happily ever after in Canada." His embrace, once my warmest sanctuary, now felt repulsive. I suppressed the urge to push him away and whispered, "Okay." The next morning, I left the house quietly, using a work emergency as an excuse. I arrived at Miss Davis's law firm at our scheduled time. Her office was sleek and professional. After listening to my story and reviewing the evidence I had collected, her expression turned serious. "This is a rather unique situation," she said. "Even if they registered their marriage overseas, it has no legal standing in the U.S. unless it was also registered with a U.S. consulate. This is very advantageous for you." She paused for a moment before continuing. "The most important thing right now is to finalize your immigration process as quickly as possible and establish yourself in Canada first. Simultaneously, we need to gather more evidence of their malicious asset diversion. When the time is right, we will file for divorce and sue for the return of assets and damages." Miss Davis laid out a detailed action plan for me. First, expedite the immigration application to leave the country before they suspected anything. Second, continue to transfer the remaining assets to secure my core wealth. Third, hire a private investigator to trace Michael and Jessica's financial flows, especially their overseas accounts. Fourth, liaise with a local lawyer in Canada to prepare for legal action there. Leaving the law firm, I called my mother, telling her I needed to speed up the immigration process and asking for her cooperation with the property title transfers and fund receipts. My mother, though a bit puzzled, trusted me unconditionally and promised to handle everything as quickly as possible. After hanging up, I took a deep breath. I looked up at the sky. The sun was bright, but it only made my mind feel clearer. This was a war I couldn't afford to lose. When I got home, Michael was on the phone in the living room. Seeing me, he hastily wrapped up the call. "Honey, where have you been?" I called, but you didn't pick up. My phone died. I went to the office to handle some immigration-related work and had a client meeting. I dropped my bag on the sofa and casually mentioned, "Oh, by the way, Miss Davis, our immigration lawyer, called. She said there's an issue with one of the application forms and you need to go to her office tomorrow to sign it in person." Michael's eyes flickered for a second, but he quickly nodded. "Okay, no problem. I'm free tomorrow anyway." He had no idea that the document Miss Davis wanted him to sign was actually a marital property declaration. The document clearly stated that the assets I had already transferred were my sole and separate prenuptial property. Once he signed it, he would be legally acknowledging that fact, making it difficult to contest later. That night, lying in bed, listening to Michael's steady breathing beside me, I couldn't sleep. I knew I had to continue playing the part of the happy, oblivious wife. I couldn't afford to show any cracks in my performance. Meanwhile, Michael and Jessica were still dreaming of their windfall, believing I would meekly sign the asset waiver and be left at their mercy in Canada, penniless and alone. The doorbell rang while I was pretending to organize immigration documents in the living room. I had deliberately spread a few unimportant papers on the coffee table to create an impression of being busy and overwhelmed. When I opened the door, Jessica was standing there with her usual sweet smile holding a pretty paper bag. Evelyn, I brought some freshly baked madeleines. I figured you've been so busy with the move you probably haven't been eating properly. She stepped inside, her eyes quickly scanning the documents on the coffee table. A flash of impatience crossed her face, a look she couldn't quite hide. "You're the best, Jess," I said, feigning emotion as I took the bag. "Come on in, have a seat." "I was just looking at these papers and was about to call you about something I didn't understand." Jessica sat down on the sofa and naturally started flipping through the documents. Her fingers paused on one page. It was the list of assets for immigration I had purposely left in the most conspicuous spot. It only listed a small savings account and one low-value apartment. My core assets were already gone from the list. "Why is this asset declaration so simple?" Jessica asked, frowning with feigned concern. "We talked about this before. It's better to declare all joint marital assets so you can manage them centrally in Canada. If you declare so little, it's going to complicate things when you try to buy a house." She put down the document and pulled a printed stack of papers from her bag. "I drafted a marital asset waiver for you. Take a look. Signing this will speed up the immigration process significantly, and it'll help avoid any property disputes later on." Michael thought it was a good idea too. I took the waiver and pretended to read it carefully. Inside, I was sneering. The document stated that I was voluntarily relinquishing all marital property, including my shares in the company, real estate, and savings, keeping only a small amount of personal belongings. This was their endgame: to leave me destitute and transfer all my assets to their new legitimate marriage. "Do we really have to do this?" I asked, feigning hesitation and scratching my head. "I don't really understand all this legal jargon. What if I sign it and there's a problem later, and some of these assets were part of my inheritance from my parents? It feels like a waste to just give them up." I watched Jessica's reaction as I spoke, hoping to glean more clues from her words. "Evelyn, don't worry. This is an official legal document. There won't be any problems," Jessica said, urgently grabbing my hand. "Think about it. You and Michael love each other so much. You're going to be a family. What does it matter whose name the property is in? Besides, once you sign this and get to Canada, Michael will definitely transfer everything into a joint account for you two. And he would never let you lose out on your inheritance. He's already bought a luxury condo for you in Canada, just waiting for you to arrive." "A condo in Canada?" I asked, my eyes lighting up, pretending to be intrigued. "Which neighborhood? How big is it?" When I asked Michael about it before, he just said it was taken care of, but didn't give me any details. "Oblivious to my trap," Jessica said carelessly. "It's the River Peterson condos in Kitsilano, Vancouver. It's about 1,200 square feet, and the view is incredible. Michael and I picked it out together when we were there on that business trip. The down payment was already made from our joint account." After she said it, she realized her slip. Her face stiffened slightly and she quickly added, "Oh, I mean, Michael asked me to help him pick it out. The account is his, I just helped with the transfer." I celebrated silently. She had just admitted to their joint Canadian account and that they had used their joint funds for the condo's down payment. "Oh, I see," I said, pretending not to notice her mistake. "But I'm still a little worried. What if I sign this waiver, and when I get to Canada, Michael changes his mind? I heard marriage laws are different in other countries, and I might not have any protection if something goes wrong." I let out a deliberate sigh, looking upset. "It's not that I don't trust you guys. It's just, I'm a bit anxious." I looked at her directly. "What else did you and Michael do on that business trip besides looking for an apartment?" "He told me you two traveled separately. You went to Italy, and he was in Canada." Jessica's eyes darted away. She picked up her water glass and took a sip, trying to hide her panic. "Oh, nothing much. We just did a little sightseeing on the side. I looked at some cathedrals in Italy, and Michael handled the apartment stuff in Canada. We barely saw each other." Her story was full of holes. The iMessage history clearly stated they got married at a church together, and now she was claiming they were apart. "I see," I said with a faint smile, pulling out my phone. "I saw some pictures online the other day. It was a couple that looked so much like you and Michael. They were at a church in Europe too, looking very much in love. I thought it was you two. Guess I was mistaken." I pretended to scroll through my photo gallery, but I was watching her out of the corner of my eye. Jessica's face went pale. She gripped her water glass so tightly her knuckles turned white. "What are you talking about? You must have seen it wrong. How could Michael and I be at a church together? We're just good friends." Her voice trembled slightly, and she couldn't meet my gaze. I decided to stop there. I put my phone away and picked up the waiver. Right, I must have been mistaken. But I need some more time to think about this waiver. It's a big decision, so I should probably talk to my mom about it first. Jessica tried to persuade me further, but I cut her off. By the way, can you give me that asset declaration list? Michael told me to list everything, but my memory is a bit foggy. I wanted you to double-check if I missed anything. I handed her the list and pointed to an item. This Swiss bank account, that's Michael's, right? I think he mentioned it once before. Said there was quite a lot of money in it. Should I declare this too? Jessica's eyes lit up when she saw the account details. Yes, you should definitely declare this account. It has over 800,000 euros in it. It's Michael's personal asset. Declaring it will help with the immigration review. She had no idea I had already documented that account number. It was likely a key channel they were using to hide assets. Just then, Michael came home from work. He looked happy to see Jessica. Jess, what are you doing here? I was just about to call you. Is the waiver ready? Jessica quickly stood up and whispered something to him. It was probably about me still hesitating to sign. Michael walked over and hugged me from behind. Honey, what are you still thinking about? The waiver is just a formality. Signing it will make the immigration process much faster. And would I or Jessica ever do anything to hurt you, don't worry. Once we get to Canada, I promise to make you happy. His chin rested on my shoulder, his breath on my neck. It made my stomach churn. I know you guys wouldn't hurt me, I said, turning to look him in the eye. But I still want to wait a bit. At least until I hear back from my mom. By the way, Michael, where did the money in that Swiss bank account come from? I heard our company's finances have been a little tight lately. How do you have so much personal cash? Michael's face froze. He looked flustered. Oh, it's nothing. Just some money I made from an old investment. I was planning to surprise you with it, so I didn't tell you. His lie was clumsy. I knew the company's financial situation better than anyone. There was absolutely no spare capital for investments. Evelyn, stop asking so many questions. Michael was just trying to surprise you, Jessica interjected, shooting Michael a look. Let's focus on the immigration stuff. We don't have much time. Any more delays could cause problems with the application. I feigned being persuaded and nodded. Okay, fine. I'll think about it some more and give you an answer tomorrow. Jess, why don't you stay for dinner? I'll have Michael make that cola braised chicken you love so much. No, I have something urgent to do. I have to go. I'll come back tomorrow. Jessica grabbed her bag and left in a hurry. Before she left, she didn't forget to add, think carefully about that waiver. It's really for your own good. Watching her retreating back, I smirked. She still thought I was the same naive, gullible fool. She had no idea that every word out of her mouth was becoming evidence for my counterattack. I picked up my phone, saved the recording of my conversation with Jessica, and sent it to Miss Davis. Hey, why did she leave in such a rush? Did you say something to upset her? Michael asked, looking puzzled. No, I guess she really had something important to do, I said, feigning ignorance. By the way, Michael, can you give me the password to that Swiss bank account? I was thinking of putting some of my savings in there too. It would be more convenient to use when we get to Canada. No, you don't need to do that. That account is a bit special, and transfers are complicated. When we get to Canada, I'll open a new joint account for us and put all our money in there. His refusal only confirmed my suspicions. The money in that account was most likely the marital assets they had illegally siphoned off. That night, lying in bed, I replayed the recording of my conversation with Jessica and pieced together the clues she had inadvertently dropped. The joint Swiss bank account, the condo in Vancouver, the overseas marriage certificate from the church. These fragmented pieces of information were gradually forming a complete chain of evidence. I could feel the day of my counterattack drawing near, and Jessica and Michael, drunk on their own scheme, were walking step by step into the trap I had laid completely unaware. The next morning I called Jessica and told her I agreed to sign the waiver, but I wanted Michael to be present as a witness when I signed it. Over the phone, Jessica couldn't hide her excitement, and readily agreed. We arranged to meet at our place at 3 p.m. On the day of my departure for Canada at the crack of dawn, Michael was dragging my suitcase downstairs, fussing over me endlessly. Did you pack all your documents? Check your passport, visa, and plane ticket one more time. We don't want any problems at the airport. His voice was sweet as honey, but his eyes betrayed an eagerness to see me go. Jessica had also arrived early, holding a bouquet of white roses. She wished me a new beginning in Canada and a smooth journey. As she handed me the flowers, she naturally adjusted my collar, her fingers casually brushing against the zipper of my carry-on bag. Evelyn, you have so much luggage. Should I double-check it for you? We wouldn't want you to forget anything important. I knew she wanted to see if I had packed the waiver. I had deliberately placed it in a prominent spot in my carry-on where she could clearly see it. It's okay. I've checked it a dozen times, I said, smiling as I took the flowers. With you two looking after me so well, how could I forget anything? I leaned closer to Jessica and lowered my voice. I brought the waiver. I'll sign it at the boarding gate after I pass through security. I'll take a picture and send it to you then. So you two can rest easy. Jessica's eyes lit up, and she nodded eagerly. Yes, that's the best way. We don't want any last-minute issues. When we arrived at JFK International Airport, the check-in counters were already crowded. Michael volunteered to take my passport and ticket to stand in line while Jessica held my hand, chattering on with last-minute advice. You have to call me every day when you get to Canada. It's drier there than in New York, so make sure you use a lot of face masks. And there's a great Korean market near the apartment Michael got for you, so it'll be convenient for grocery shopping. If you run into any problems, just call Michael. He'll take care of everything. She spoke with concern, but her gaze kept darting over to Michael in the line. They exchanged silent, knowing glances. I pretended not to notice and played along with her. Okay. You sound more like my mom than my mom does. By the way, once I'm settled, I'll send you some local specialties. You mentioned you wanted some French perfume, right? I'll buy you a few bottles. You're the best. When the time comes, Michael and I will come to the airport to pick you up, Jessica said, grinning from ear to ear. Michael returned with my boarding pass and baggage claim ticket. All set. Your bags are checked in, and your gate is B18. We have an hour before boarding, so let's go to the lounge and relax. It's more comfortable there. He reached for my backpack, but I instinctively pulled away. No, it's fine. It's not heavy. I'll carry it. I have important documents inside. I don't want to lose them. Inside the backpack, besides the waiver I had conspicuously packed, was a small audio recorder Miss Davis had specially prepared for me. It could record continuously for 8 hours. I planned to record all of their hypocritical conversations at the airport to use as future evidence. The lounge was quiet. Michael ordered me a warm glass of milk and sat beside me holding my hand. Honey, take care of yourself in Canada. Don't work too hard. I'll handle things with the business here. You just relax and enjoy life. I'll fly over as soon as I wrap things up in New York, 3 months at the latest. We'll have a grand wedding ceremony there. His hand was warm and firm, but it felt like I was holding a block of ice. I'd like that, I said, looking up at him and smiling brightly. I'll be waiting. We'll invite lots of friends so everyone can celebrate our happiness. I deliberately emphasized lots of friends, watching his reaction. Michael's eyes flickered. He quickly said, Of course. We'll ask Jessica to be your maid of honor. She'd be thrilled. Absolutely. I'll be counting down the days. Jessica chimed in from her seat next to me, sipping her coffee. Evelyn, don't worry. I'll take good care of Michael while you're gone. I'll make sure he doesn't skip meals or work too late. Her words carried an undertone of someone asserting their ownership. I sneered inwardly, but kept a neutral expression. That would be great. I'm most worried about Michael. He never takes care of himself. It would be a relief to have you looking out for him. As I spoke, I discreetly pressed the record button on the device in my backpack. Boarding time approached, and an announcement echoed through the lounge. Michael and Jessica walked me to the gate. Suddenly, Michael pulled me into a tight hug. Take care, honey. Call me as soon as you land. His voice was deliberately tinged with sadness, as if he couldn't bear to let me go. I lightly patted his back. I will. You take care of yourself, too. Jessica also gave me a brief hug. Come back soon, Evelyn. We'll miss you. Her embrace was light and quick. Her eyes were filled with an unmistakable look of anticipation. I waved at them. Goodbye. I'll be in touch. As I turned to walk through the gate, I didn't look back. I could picture them standing there watching my retreating back, smiling triumphantly, thinking I was walking straight into their trap, but they had no idea that the recorder in my backpack was still running, capturing every bit of their hypocrisy and deceit. As I went through security, I took out the waiver and deliberately waved it in front of a TSA agent before putting it back in my bag. I needed them to believe I would sign it, as they wished to lower their guard. Once on the plane, I took out my phone and sent a message to Miss Davis. Boarding complete. Recorder is on. Everything is going according to plan. A reply came back almost instantly. Confirmed. Contact has been made with the lawyer in Canada. He will be waiting for you at your hotel upon arrival. The plane slowly taxied down the runway and took off. Looking down at the shrinking city below, I felt no attachment. This city held my 3 years of marriage, and it was also the scene of a dirty scam. Now I was leaving it behind to begin my counterattack in Canada. Michael Peterson, Jessica Miller, everything you meticulously planned will turn to dust. Everything you owe me, I will take back piece by piece from Canada. The plane pierced through the clouds, flying towards a new horizon. When the plane landed at Vancouver International Airport YVR, it was early morning local time. As I stepped out of the aircraft, I was greeted by crisp, cool air mixed with a faint scent of flowers a world away from the humid climate of New York. I followed the crowd to the arrivals hall without delay. Leo Vance, the Canadian lawyer Miss Davis had arranged for me, was waiting at the exit. He was dressed in a sharp suit and held a sign with my name on it. He approached me as soon as he saw me. "Miss Reed, you must be tired from your flight. I've arranged a hotel for you. Let's go there first and discuss our plan." His English had a slight, pleasant Canadian accent. He skillfully took my suitcase and led me to the parking garage. In the car, Leo handed me a manila envelope. "Here are the results of the European and North American account search you requested. Based on the information you provided, we've confirmed that Michael Peterson and Jessica Miller have a total of 3 joint accounts in Switzerland and Canada. The Swiss bank account has the largest balance, approximately €800,000. The 2 accounts with RBC here in Canada were used for the down payment on the Vancouver condo and for daily expenses." He paused. "I've already contacted all 3 banks, submitted preliminary evidence, and requested a temporary freeze on the accounts, citing that the funds are linked to the unauthorized transfer of marital assets. The banks have accepted the request, and we should receive official freeze notifications within 48 hours. I opened the envelope and examined the bank statements. The records clearly showed Michael making numerous transfers from our company funds and joint savings accounts into these joint accounts while I was busy with immigration preparations. Jessica's role had been to receive and manage the money overseas. These records alone were enough to prove their malicious concealment of assets. Excellent work. Also, please submit the evidence of their overseas marriage registration to Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada and Global Affairs Canada. We need to expose their marriage as a fraudulent scheme to embezzle my assets and apply to have the registration voided." I took out the USB drive containing the backed-up wedding photos, iMessage, screenshots, and the audio recording from the airport. "Here is the evidence. Please organize and submit it." Of course. Marriage fraud is a serious crime in Canada. If confirmed, the marriage will be annulled and they could face significant fines. Furthermore, my associate has confirmed the property in Kitsilano, the River Peterson condo you mentioned. It was indeed purchased with funds from their joint account, and the title is in both of their names. We will file a challenge with the local land title office and simultaneously apply for an injunction to prevent the sale or transfer of the property. The car entered downtown Vancouver. The European-style buildings and the sunlight filtering through the trees created a peaceful scene, but I was in no mood to appreciate the scenery. My mind was consumed with planning my revenge. When we arrived at the hotel, Leo led me to a pre-arranged meeting room. Inside, a local private investigator whom I had hired through Miss Davis was waiting. His job was to track Michael and Jessica's movements in North America and Europe, and gather additional evidence. "Miss Reed," the investigator said, standing to greet me, and handing me an initial report. "As requested, we've investigated Mr. Peterson and Miss Miller's recent travel history. In addition to their marriage registration and property purchase in Canada, they also visited Italy and Spain, where they opened several shell accounts to hide additional assets. We've obtained hotel records, receipts, and even video footage of them meeting with a money launderer. All of this can be used as further evidence." I skimmed the report. It was filled with information that proved their greed. They hadn't just targeted my domestic assets. They had also set up numerous escape routes overseas. They were truly meticulous. Continue to monitor their accounts and their contacts. If they make any attempt to unfreeze the accounts or sell the property, notify me immediately, I instructed the investigator. Over the next few days, I worked from the hotel with Leo and the PI, organizing evidence and finalizing my counterattack strategy. I coordinated with Miss Davis in New York to prepare for the divorce filing, sharing all the evidence we gathered to build an airtight case. Everything would be submitted to the court at the opportune moment. I also had my mother complete additional notarization procedures for the assets I had transferred in the U.S., leaving no stone unturned. During this time, Michael sent me one text message asking if I had arrived safely and moved into the apartment. I didn't reply, simply screenshotting it as evidence that he knew about the apartment but had concealed the ownership details from me. Jessica also sent several messages pestering me to send a photo of the signed waiver. I ignored her as well, letting them stew in their anxiety back in New York. On the fourth day, Leo brought good news. The 3 bank accounts have been officially frozen. The immigration authorities have accepted the fraud report and have begun their investigation. The Land Title Office has also issued an injunction, so Mr. Peterson and Miss Miller cannot sell or mortgage the Vancouver condo for the time being. He handed me the official notices from the bank and immigration. And we have new information from the PI. We found a transfer of approximately €1 million from an unknown source into one of Miss Miller's shell accounts in Spain. We suspect it's illegally diverted company funds. I took the documents feeling a surge of triumph. The past few days of hard work had paid off. I had successfully cut off their overseas funding and blocked them from disposing of the assets. Now all I had to do was wait for them to walk into their own trap. I knew that when they didn't hear from me, they would get anxious, and anxious people make mistakes. That would be the moment I launched my final assault. On the 5th day, I had Leo contact a local Canadian news outlet. I didn't intend to expose them directly. Instead, I wanted to use the media to publicize a story about marriage fraud, used to embezzle marital assets, putting public pressure on Michael and Jessica, and making them realize the gravity of their situation. At the same time, with Leo's help, I got a new phone number and shared it only with essential contacts. I put my old phone on silent, cutting off all communication from Michael and Jessica. On the 7th night in Canada, I stood on my hotel balcony looking out at the Vancouver skyline. The lights of the distant Lions Gate Bridge were brilliant. I took a deep breath, feeling the exotic night air. The busy schedule of the past few days had left me no time to grieve or dwell on the betrayal. There was only one thought in my mind. I would make Michael Peterson and Jessica Miller pay for what they had done. I picked up my phone and reviewed all the evidence one last time. Frozen accounts and enjoined property recordings and photos, the PI's reports, the lawyer's litigation plan. Everything was ready. In the deep Vancouver night, only the warm yellow glow of the bedside lamp illuminated my hotel room. Just as I set down the folder of evidence on the nightstand, my old phone buzzed. The name, Michael, lit up the screen. I had been waiting for him to call. It was 1 a.m. here, which meant it was 7 a.m. in New York. I watched the screen, letting it ring 3 times before I answered, my voice deliberately groggy, as if I had just been woken up. "Hello, what's going on? Why are you calling at this hour?" On the other end, Michael's voice was trembling with urgency, laced with an exaggerated sense of alarm. "Evelyn, something terrible has happened. My mother had a sudden brain hemorrhage. She's at the hospital now and needs emergency surgery. The doctor said it's critical, she might not make it if she doesn't get surgery right now." He spoke in a rush, as if to prevent me from interjecting. "You need to book the first flight back, and the surgery costs $50,000. You need to send the money from there right away. All my money is tied up in a project right now. I don't have any cash on hand." My hand holding the phone felt weightless. I felt no emotion. My mother-in-law had just been on a video call with me a few days ago, telling me she was going for her morning walk and was planning to make chicken pot pie. A sudden brain hemorrhage. His lies weren't even creative. A brain hemorrhage. That's serious. "Which hospital is she in?" I asked, my voice intentionally trembling with feigned panic. She was always so healthy. How could this happen so suddenly? "What does it matter which hospital? It's Mount Sinai," Michael said, his voice edged with irritation that he was trying to suppress. "Stop asking pointless questions and get on a plane. The surgery needs to start soon, and the doctor said they won't operate without payment. You need to send the money to this account." He rattled off a bank account, number 1 of his domestic personal accounts, that I knew wasn't frozen. "And the money you deposited when you arrived in Canada, you need to withdraw it and send it now. My mom is waiting." I leaned back against the headboard, my eyes on the evidence folder on the nightstand. I spoke slowly. $50. 000. I just got to Canada. I haven't even activated my bank cards yet. How am I supposed to withdraw that kind of money? "Haven't activated them. What do you mean?" Michael's voice shot up, laced with anger. "Don't make excuses. You have the money from your inheritance and the money we saved for the move. How can you not access it? Find a way and send the money today. If something happens to my mom, I'll never forgive you." His tone grew harsh. The gentle facade was gone, replaced by blatant demands and calculations. I could picture him perfectly scowling and shouting into the phone with Jessica standing beside him, wringing her hands anxiously. "It's the middle of the night here. All the banks are closed. How am I supposed to send the money? And I can't book a flight until morning." The earliest I could get back would be the day after tomorrow. Wouldn't that be too late for the surgery? I continued to play the innocent, helpless wife. You have to come back even if you're late. As for the money, borrow it from a friend in Canada, go to a currency exchange, do whatever it takes to send it today. My mother is in the ICU right now. Every second counts. He paused, then his voice softened into a pleading tone. Evelyn, please. She's my mother. Your mother-in-law. How can you just watch her die? If you help us through this, I promise I'll make it up to you. I'll let you manage all our finances from now on. Please. This combination of threats and persuasion was his old trick. But now, it just sounded pathetic. He was calling her your mother-in-law, but all he was thinking about was how to get my money so he and Jessica could live happily ever after. I know she's my mother-in-law. How could I not help? I let out a sigh. But I just got here, I don't have any friends, and I don't know where any currency exchanges are. Can't you try borrowing from someone else first? Like Jessica, she's our best friend. Doesn't she have some money? I deliberately mentioned Jessica to see how he would react. There was a 2-second silence on the other end. Michael's voice became awkward. Jessica. She's in a tight spot financially right now. She helped me out with some capital for the project, so she's broke. Don't count on her. You need to find a way, just as I thought. He didn't want Jessica to contribute a dime. He only wanted to bleed me dry. I sneered silently and continued. But $50, 000, is a lot of money. How am I supposed to come up with that on such short notice? Can't you pull some money out of that project you invested in? You need to take care of the emergency first. I can't. It's a long-term investment. If I pull out now, there are huge penalties, Michael said, his voice growing impatient again. I told you, send the money today. If something happens to my mom, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. He was threatening me now, his voice filled with rage. Hearing his threats, I suddenly felt that this whole charade was pointless. His acting was terrible. He couldn't even control his own emotions. I looked out the window. The Vancouver night sky was tinged with a faint light, and the Lionsgate Bridge glowed dimly in the distance. Okay. I'll see what I can do, I said, my voice low. But I need some time. Tell the doctor to take good care of her for now. As soon as it's morning, I'll go to the bank and see if I can make an international transfer. How is she doing now? When is the surgery scheduled? I'd like to speak with the doctor to get the details. When I mentioned speaking to the doctor, Michael panicked. No, the doctor is busy right now. He doesn't have time for a call. I'll keep you updated. You just focus on getting the money. His voice was clearly evasive. We'll leave it at that for now. Let me know as soon as you have news. The money has to be sent as soon as possible. He hung up without even waiting for my reply. The dial tone buzzed in my ear. I put the phone down, a cold smile on my face. This mother-in-law drama was full of holes. He didn't even ask how I was doing in Canada or if I was adjusting to life here. His mind was only on the money and his scheme with Jessica. I picked up my phone and sent a message to Miss Davis. Michael contacted me, faking a stroke with his mother to ask for $50K in surgery fees. Avoided mentioning Jessica contributing. A reply came back quickly. Confirmed. PI has verified your mother-in-law's condition. She is in perfect health. Michael's domestic account is under surveillance. Any incoming funds will be frozen immediately. Proceed as planned. As the morning sun began to filter into the room, my phone rang again. It was Michael. He didn't even wait for the second ring before he blurted out. What about the money? The doctor said, if we're 30 minutes later, he's not doing the surgery. Did you send it or not? I took a sip of my freshly brewed coffee sitting by the window and watching people jog in the morning light. I let out a soft laugh. Michael, aren't you tired of acting? There was a moment of silence on the other end. Then Michael's voice, trying to sound calm, came through. What are you talking about? My mother is dying and you're in the mood for jokes. Jokes, I let the laughter fade from my voice, which was now as cold as the Vancouver winter air. My mother-in-law had a FaceTime call with me at 7 a.m. this morning. She told me she just finished her morning walk and was on her way to buy fresh vegetables to make chicken pot pie. How is it that in your version of the story, she's in the ICU waiting for surgery money? Michael's breathing became heavy and ragged. His voice was laced with panic. What, you FaceTimed with her? That's impossible. She's definitely at the hospital. Impossible, I cut him off, opening the wedding photo on my phone. I spoke slowly into the receiver. Just as impossible as you. Getting married to Jessica Miller at a church in Vancouver last week, is that right? I heard something crash on the other end, followed by Jessica's faint scream. Michael's voice changed instantly. What? How did you know? You heard a rumor. That's it. It's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, I sneered, reciting their iMessage conversation from memory. The ceremony went great. Once she signs the waiver, it's all ours. With the money in the Swiss account, we can live a life of luxury in Canada. Is that also a misunderstanding? Michael completely fell apart. His tone shifted from threats to begging. Evelyn, honey, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. Jessica and I. It was just a moment of weakness. We didn't get married. That photo is photoshopped. Please don't be mad. Just send the money first. My mom really is sick. Don't call me honey, I interrupted. My voice was devoid of warmth. You should be calling me your ex-wife. Your legal wife is Jessica Miller now, isn't she? I paused, then added with emphasis. You got married in a church in Vancouver, right? The minister's name was Pierre. The two witnesses were local residents you hired. Do you want me to give you the church's contact information so you can double-check? I could hear Jessica's tearful voice in the background. Evelyn, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I seduced Michael. Please don't blame him. Just send the money and save his mother's life. His mother's life, I scoffed. Jessica, the 800,000 euros in the Swiss bank account you two set up, the 200,000 euros you used for the down payment on the Vancouver condo, and the 1 million euros in the Spanish shell account. Is any of that money not mine? You used my money to get married overseas and buy a house, and now you have the audacity to ask me for ransom money. You froze our accounts. Michael's voice suddenly rose in a mix of disbelief and fury. You did this. How long have you known? You did this on purpose. From the day you two slipped up at the cafe, I said calmly. Did you really think I would sign that asset waiver? Did you think I came to Canada to make way for you two? Michael, not only did I freeze all of your accounts in Europe and North America, but I also reported your marriage fraud to Canadian immigration. An investigation is probably already underway. You're insane. That's my money too. Half of the company's profits are mine, Jessica shrieked over the phone. Your money, my laugh, was colder than before. I founded that company before we were married. You were just an employee. What right do you have to its profits? It wasn't enough for you and Michael to secretly embezzle company funds and steal my prenuptial assets. Now you're trying to scam me out of more money to cover your tracks. What is it that you want? My mother really is sick. Even if I was wrong, how can you just ignore a dying person? Michael's tone shifted from anger to desperation. I will ignore her. And it's none of my business, I said flatly. The $50. 000 you need, ask Jessica for it. She's your legal wife, and you two have plenty of money in your joint accounts. Well, they're frozen now, but still. I paused, then added. By the way, I've already filed for divorce and a petition for asset preservation with my lawyer in New York. Every single asset you and Jessica siphoned off will be reclaimed. No, you can't do this. We were married. How can you be so cruel? Michael screamed. Cruel, I thought of their hypocrisy and deception over the past 6 months, and my heart felt empty. Compared to the cruelty of you two secretly getting married behind my back and plotting to leave me destitute, what I'm doing is nothing. I checked the time and said firmly, Michael, Jessica, the game is over. The court will make you pay back what you owe me with interest. Don't ever call me again. I don't want to dirty my ears. Wait, Michael tried to say something else, but I hung up and blocked his number. I blocked Jessica's number as well. I put the phone down. The coffee was still warm. The Vancouver sun filled the room. I picked up my phone and sent a message to Miss Davis. Counterattack complete. Submitting all evidence. Proceed with the lawsuit as planned. A reply came back almost instantly. Confirmed. Filing submitted to the court in New York. PI captured Michael and Jessica arguing in front of the hospital. Jessica reportedly broke things off with him and left. Miss Davis's message was followed by a video from the PI. In the video, Michael and Jessica were in front of Mount Sinai Hospital, grabbing at each other's clothes, their faces red with anger. This is all because of your stupid idea. Now the accounts are frozen and we're being sued. What are we going to do? Michael yelled in Jessica's face, spittle flying. My fault. Who was the one who said she was easy to fool and that we should get her to sign the waiver first? Now we're not getting the money and we're caught up in a lawsuit, and your mother isn't even sick. How are you going to Explain this. Jessica shoved him hard, her hair a mess, screaming back at him. A crowd of onlookers had gathered, some taking pictures with their phones. Michael, flustered, tried to drag Jessica inside the hospital to escape the scene, but she wrenched her hand away. Don't touch me. You think it's just the overseas accounts that are frozen. I just got a call from my bank. All my domestic cards have been suspended too. It has to be her. Watching the two of them tear each other apart in the video, I swiped the screen and replied to Miss Davis. Continue monitoring. Secure additional evidence of their conflict. A short while later, another message came from Miss Davis. Jessica just contacted me. She's willing to provide the iMessage history of her plotting with Michael to embezzle the assets in exchange for leniency. She also revealed that Michael secretly transferred company shares domestically. 3 months ago, he transferred 30% of your company shares to his cousin's name, with the plan to transfer them back to his own name after you signed the waiver. Can we get proof of the share transfer? I asked. She says she has the transaction records between Michael and his cousin, photos of the share transfer agreement, and iMessage conversations proving the malicious intent. She's afraid Michael will pin all the blame on her and wants to cooperate with us. Also, the PI's investigation confirmed that the money Michael claimed to have invested in a project was never actually invested. It was transferred to his cousin's account with the plan to split it with Jessica after the dust settled. I sneered. They were two of a kind. The moment trouble arose, they turned on each other. Tell Jessica that if she wants leniency, she needs to submit all the evidence. The information on the money launderer for the European shell accounts, every detail of the real estate transaction, and all the specifics of the perjury, Michael instructed her to commit. I replied to Miss Davis. And immediately file a motion with the court to freeze Michael's cousin's accounts and start proceedings to recover the transferred shares. That afternoon, Miss Davis sent good news. Jessica has sent all the evidence. It includes the share transfer agreement between Michael and his cousin, the transaction records, and even the iMessage conversation where they discussed how to forge the project contract. It has all been submitted to the court, which has approved the motion to freeze the cousin's accounts and initiate the share recovery process. She also forwarded Jessica's written confession. It detailed the entire process from how her affair with Michael started to their overseas marriage and asset embezzlement. It even stated that Michael had targeted my wealth from the moment he first approached her. Jessica admitted she had been jealous of everything I had and had gone along with his plan. Michael is in a full-blown panic, Miss Davis said. He can't reach you, and Jessica has turned on him. The company is at a standstill due to the frozen accounts and share dispute, and employees are demanding their back pay. His cousin is also getting nervous and is now trying to pin all the blame on Michael to save himself. I remembered the early days of starting the company, the all-nighters I pulled to revise proposals, the hustle to find clients. Michael, instead of cherishing the fruits of my labor, had conspired with an outsider to take everything from me. All I felt was disgust. Tell the employees not to worry. Their salaries will be paid out first through the finance department. The company will not collapse, I messaged Miss Davis. And have the PI continue to monitor Michael's movements. We can't let him flee. That night, my mother called me on video chat. She told me that Michael's mother had indeed come to her house crying and begging her to get me to drop the lawsuit, claiming she had no idea her son had done such a thing. I told her this is something Michael brought upon himself, and he needs to face the legal consequences. Our family will not be settling. My mother's voice was firm. You just take care of yourself in Canada. Miss Davis will handle everything here, so don't worry. Seeing my mother's tired but resolute face, I nodded. You take care of yourself too, Mom. I'll make sure those people never bother you again. After the call, I opened my computer and looked at the latest evidence list Miss Davis had sent. The share transfer records the money trail, Jessica's testimony, Michael's cousin's account information, the proof of the company's operational halt. The chain of evidence was becoming more and more complete. Michael and Jessica were trapped. The Vancouver night grew deeper. I closed my computer and walked out onto the balcony. The lights of the Lions Gate Bridge were brilliant. The night breeze on my cheeks was soothing. The chain reaction in New York was unfolding just as I had anticipated. Their lies were being peeled back layer by layer, their conflict escalating, leading to their self-destruction. Jessica's betrayal was just the beginning. Soon, Michael's cousin, former colleagues, and the many others he had deceived would come forward to protect themselves. Their meticulously planned scam had become a storm that was now consuming them, and all I had to do was wait quietly in Vancouver, wait for the final judgment of the law, and for the day when everything that was mine would be returned to me completely. I picked up my phone and sent one last message to Miss Davis. Submit all additional evidence tomorrow. Please expedite the legal proceedings as much as possible. The next morning, a message arrived from Miss Davis. All additional evidence submitted. The court has simultaneously issued legal notices to Michael, Jessica, and Michael's cousin. They have 7 days to return all embezzled assets, or they will face criminal charges. The attached file contained scanned copies of the 3 legal notices. The charges were clearly listed: Michael Peterson, marital misconduct, marriage fraud, with Jessica Miller, malicious embezzlement of marital assets and company shares. Jessica Miller, conspiracy to commit fraud and aiding in asset transfer. Michael Peterson's cousin, knowingly aiding and abetting a crime and concealing assets. Each charge was cross-referenced with an evidence number hitting them where it hurt. Have they received the notices? I asked. They were delivered in person to Michael and Jessica. Both of them turned pale when they saw the documents. Michael ripped up his copy on the spot and threatened the process server. The entire incident was recorded. Jessica burst into tears and begged to cooperate with the asset return if we drop the criminal charges, Miss Davis replied. The notice to Michael's cousin was sent by registered mail, and he has already contacted me. He wants to return the shares and the money in the account and reach a settlement. I sneered. A settlement now. It was too late. Tell Michael's cousin that a settlement is possible, but only if he returns the full amount of the transferred funds and agrees to testify in court that Michael initiated the asset transfer. Otherwise, there's no deal, I instructed Miss Davis. As for Jessica, have her first submit the application to transfer the ownership of the Vancouver condo and return all funds from the shell accounts to my account. Tell her I will consider forgiveness based on her actions. That afternoon, Miss Davis sent an update. Michael's cousin has returned the $800,000 to the company account and has filed the share transfer application with the registrar's office. He has also signed an affidavit testifying to Michael's malicious intent. Jessica has submitted the ownership transfer application for the Canadian property and has returned the €1 million from the Spanish shell account to your designated account. What about Michael? Any movement from him? Michael is still refusing to return any assets and is threatening to fly to Canada to find you. However, the PI's surveillance shows he is already packing and contacting a broker to sell his only remaining unfrozen asset, a small apartment. It looks like he's planning to flee. We have notified the court and have filed for a travel ban. I replied immediately. Have the PI keep him under close watch. If he attempts to leave the country, notify the court and the police immediately. And have our lawyer file for a writ of execution to seize all of his assets, including that small apartment. A short while later, a message came from Miss Davis. The court has approved the travel ban, and it has been registered with immigration authorities. Michael's small apartment has also been seized. He just called me practically in tears, begging to return the assets if you drop the lawsuit. Have him return all embezzled company funds and property and come to the court to sign a full confession. Otherwise, there's no deal, I said firmly. He was only doing this because he was cornered, not out of genuine remorse. I couldn't forgive him that easily. That night, Miss Davis sent a final report. Michael has returned the $500 0 inches company funds and has signed a property transfer agreement to give you his small apartment. He has also submitted a signed confession, admitting to all his crimes, including the fraudulent marriage with Jessica and the malicious asset transfers. I opened the scanned copy of the confession Miss Davis sent. Looking at Michael's scribbled signature, I felt nothing. This wasn't forgiveness. It was a settling of accounts. Tell Michael this is just the beginning. If he doesn't cooperate fully with the court's investigation, all previous agreements are void, I replied to Miss Davis. And have the finance team calculate the company's total losses, including interest on the period the funds were occupied and losses incurred due to the share transfer. Michael and Jessica will be held jointly liable for compensation. After ending the call, I walked to the window and looked out at the Vancouver night. The final pressure of the legal notices had completely shattered their psychological defenses. Michael had gone from arrogant to cornered. Jessica had turned from accomplice to betrayer, begging for mercy. Michael's cousin had transformed from accomplice to a willing participant in the restitution. All of this was under my control. I knew this wasn't the end. What awaited them was the fair judgment of the law, and I would reclaim everything that was mine and start a new life in Canada. A life of peace and freedom without betrayal or calculation. I picked up my phone and sent a message to Miss Davis. Thank you for all your hard work. Please proceed according to the legal process. I trust the court will deliver a just verdict. The video call with Miss Davis started at the scheduled time. On the screen, Jessica sat in a conference room at the law firm. Her eyes were swollen, and her fingers nervously fiddled with the hem of her clothes. A stack of documents lay in front of her. "I'll tell you everything," Jessica said, looking up at the camera, her voice hoarse. "Michael and I started having an affair 3 years ago after the company's holiday party. He said you were too strong, not gentle enough. And he said that all the assets in your name would eventually be his anyway, and if I helped him, he would give me half." She picked up a document and opened it to the first page. "This is our iMessage history. It documents everything from planning the affair to the overseas marriage. He told me to pretend to help with your immigration to get information on your assets. He even taught me how to persuade you to sign the waiver first. He said you were soft-hearted and would give in if I cried and begged." "Whose idea was the overseas marriage?" Miss Davis asked. "Michael's," Jessica said, biting her lip. "He said if you two divorced in the U.S. because of an affair, he would have to split the assets. But if they got married overseas first and got you to sign the waiver, they could leave you with nothing. He found the church in Vancouver through a broker, and the witnesses were people he paid. He even told the minister not to speak English, so there would be no record." She produced another set of bank statements. "These are the records of the fund transfers he had me make. He first transferred company money to an account in my name, then sent it to the overseas accounts in multiple smaller transfers. He said it would make it harder to trace the source. The Spanish shell account was opened through an illegal broker, and we paid a €5,000 fee. He promised that once you were settled in Canada, he would move all the money to his name and just give me one small apartment." "What did he say about my mother?" I asked, suddenly, my voice calm. Jessica's body tensed. She couldn't look at the camera. "He said if you didn't sign the waiver, he would find an opportunity to have your mother move in with him and then use her safety to blackmail you. Luckily, you left for Canada before he could put that plan into action." "Tell us what you know about the share transfer," Miss Davis pressed. "The cousin is his paternal uncle's son. He had wanted to start his own business for a while. Michael promised to pay him $100,000 to hold the shares in his name. I printed out the transfer agreement and I forged your signature on the power of attorney." She paused. "But just in case, I secretly recorded a video of him teaching me how to forge your signature. It's all on this USB drive." She handed a black USB drive to Miss Davis. Miss Davis took the drive, and after a moment said, "Everything you've said will be submitted to the court as evidence. If your testimony is truthful, we will request leniency on your behalf." Jessica nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I was wrong. At first I was just so jealous of you. You had everything and I was just an ordinary office worker. When Michael showed me this fantasy, I lost my mind. Looking back now, he never truly cared about me. The moment things went wrong, he tried to pin all the blame on me." After the video call ended, I received a message from Miss Davis. "Jessica's confession has been fully recorded, and the video on the USB drive has been verified. It clearly shows Michael instructing her to commit forgery. We now have all the evidence we need to hold them legally accountable." "I will reserve my decision on her forgiveness for now," I replied. "I will decide after the court's verdict, based on her actions." I put down my phone and walked to the desk in my study. I looked at the organized list of evidence on my computer. iMessage histories transfer. Records share transfer agreements. The signature forgery video. The overseas wedding photos. Jessica's video confession. Each piece of evidence was a testament to their betrayal and greed. The afternoon sun in Vancouver streamed through the window, illuminating the cold, hard facts on my desk. I closed the computer. I felt no ripples in my heart. Jessica's betrayal, Michael's scheme, they all felt like a play that had already ended. They had traded friendship and love for money, and had ended up tearing each other apart and destroying themselves. It was the price they deserved to pay. I picked up my phone and made a video call to my mother, telling her that everything in New York was nearly resolved and that she could rest easy. My mother smiled and said, "I'm glad it's all settled. You just take care of yourself in Canada. Don't worry about things here." On the day of the court hearing, I did not return to the U.S., but participated via video conference. On the screen, Michael was in a prison jumpsuit, his hair disheveled, his eyes empty. Jessica dressed plainly, kept her head down throughout the trial, and confessed to all her crimes. The judge read out the evidence one by one: the fraudulent overseas marriage certificate, the malicious asset transfer records, the bank statements, the forged share transfer agreement, Jessica's video confession, the recording of Michael threatening to harm my mother. The chain of evidence was complete and undeniable. In the end, the court ruled that the marriage between Michael and Jessica was null and void. Michael, for marital misconduct, malicious asset transfer, and forgery, was ordered to return all embezzled assets, real estate savings, and shares to me, and to pay me $200 0-inches damages. Jessica, for conspiracy to commit fraud and aiding in asset transfer, was ordered to return the $500 000 she had illicitly gained. In consideration of her voluntary confession and provision of key evidence, she was only held civilly liable. Michael's cousin was ordered to return the 30% of company shares he had held, and the $100 000 he had received as a fee was confiscated. After the verdict was announced, Michael lost control and broke down. As he was being dragged out by the bailiffs, he screamed that he would appeal the decision. Jessica, with the help of her lawyer, began the process of returning the assets. Before leaving, she sent a message of apology to me through Miss Davis, but I did not reply. Some wounds cannot be erased with a simple apology. A week later, I received a message from Miss Davis. All assets have been fully recovered. The company shares have been transferred back to your name. All employee salaries have been paid, and the company is operating normally. Michael's appeal was denied by the court, and the original verdict has been upheld. I opened my banking app on my phone and saw the familiar numbers in my account balance. I logged into the property management site and confirmed that the ownership of the 2 apartments had been transferred back to my mother's name. A sense of peace finally settled over me. Leo Vance from Canada also brought good news. Canadian immigration has officially voided the marriage registration of Michael Peterson and Jessica Miller. The ownership of the Vancouver condo has been successfully transferred to you. The freeze on their European accounts has been lifted, and all funds have been returned to your account. For the marriage fraud, they were fined €100,000, which was deducted from their accounts. I asked Leo to rent out the Vancouver condo and use the income to support the operations of my company in New York. I myself rented a small apartment in Vancouver and enrolled in French and oil painting classes. Every morning, I would jog in the park enjoying the Vancouver sun. In the mornings, I learned French, and in the afternoons, I painted with my instructor. In the evenings, I would have dinner with new friends I had made in the local community, talking about life and dreams. My mother in New York was also doing well. She had rented out one of her apartments and was using the income to sponsor a few students in need. She had also joined a local volunteer organization and was living a full and happy life. She would occasionally call me on video chat to tell me that the company was running very well and that the employees were all working hard, so I shouldn't worry. 3 months later, I returned to New York to handle some company business. When I walked into the familiar office, all the employees stood up to greet me. Their eyes were filled with respect. Miss Davis smiled and handed me a document. This is the latest company profit report. It's doubled since you left. Michael and Jessica are apparently living miserable lives. Michael has been blacklisted as a bad debtor for failing to comply with the judgment his high-end consumption is restricted, and he is under criminal investigation for forgery. After paying back the $500 000, Jessica was left with nothing and is now working as a waitress. Her old friends are all avoiding her. I skimmed the report, but I felt nothing. To me, wealth was just a material possession. Through this experience of betrayal and revenge, I had learned to cherish the life I had in front of me, and that only through my own strength could I earn respect and freedom. After handling the company's business, I didn't stay long and returned to Canada. As the plane took off, I looked out at the sky, and my heart was clear. The turmoil that began with betrayal and deceit had finally come to an end. Michael and Jessica had paid the price for their greed and selfishness, and I, like a phoenix, had been reborn from the ashes of that storm, finding my own peace and happiness. The Vancouver sun was still warm, and the waters of the Capilano River still flowed gently. I picked up my brush and began to paint the beautiful scenery before me on the canvas. A smile of relief spread across my face. The future was something to look forward to. From now on, my life would be filled with passion and freedom, and there would be no more betrayal or pain.